Do you want to remind us, first of all, what the Arab Youth Survey actually sets out to discover?
So, Brandy, we started this way back in 2008. That's 13 years ago, when research and evidence-based was not as prevalent as in the market. And in the beginning years, people didn't take it much too seriously until the Arab Spring of 2011, when suddenly, people started saying in 2010, 92% of the youth wanted to live in a democracy. And suddenly the youth, the survey became a critical part of an annual survey that governments, private sector wanted to know about because it informed their policy making or decision making. More than anything else, Brandy, this survey has given the predominantly dominant demographic of the Arab world, 200 million youth, a voice that reaches governments and businesses so that they can make the right policies for them.
What was the effect of the pandemic on this year's survey? What did you see?
That was a surprising bit, because we went into the field in 17 Arab countries talking to 3,400 Arab men and women in the age group of 18 to 24. And we were saying, oh my God, this is going to be a very depressing survey because, the pandemic had its effects. It had, as you know, Brandy, the GDP had a decline in the MENA region of nearly $227 billion. That is a huge decline in 1 year. We're still waiting to see what the number is for 2021. And then, of course, a lot of the youth had lost their jobs. Unemployment in the youth unemployment in the MENA region is as high as 25%. The world average is about 12 to 13%. So in that kind of environment, we went in and talked to these people, and what came out is a completely surprising finding, a finding that talks of optimism. Nearly 60% of the entire sample across these 17 countries said they see that they will have better lives than before. Nearly half of them say they'll have better lives than their parents. So that kind of optimism in that very depressed environment is a very counterintuitive finding that we found, and that really surprised us, and that is really our top finding, and that's why we themed our report this year as Hope for the Future.
You also found that fewer were considering immigration. Tell me about that.
Oh, that was a top finding last year. In 2020, nearly 42% of the Arab youth across these countries wanted to emigrate. And that was a very, very surprising finding, and to some extent a dangerous finding, because, you are losing your biggest, wealth, which is your youth. This year, it dropped to about 32%, and that drop was substantial. Many reasons for that. Maybe people feel COVID actually impacted how nations close their borders, travel restrictions, a number of things that probably help, kind of got them to say, I think it's better I look at the here and now in my country. Maybe I'll try and do better in what I'm doing here.
There were obstacles, though, very quickly. We don't have a lot of time with you. The rising cost of living, global obstacle at the moment, was weighing in heavily.
Oh, number of obstacles. While there's optimism, I think the youth were very mature and very balanced in how they looked at their future. So rising cost of living was at a record high. I think you're looking at about 89% of the sample said that they are concerned about the rising cost of living. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to create an issue in young people's mind. About 88% said that's continuing to be an issue, though they say that recovery will happen by end of 2022. And of course, the most important, quality of education. 87% of these young cohorts said that the experience of education has dropped dramatically. And that's a point of worry. So obstacles, but they also want the governments to tackle these issues.
Right, we've got 2 minutes left with you. You always ask every year which country people most want to live in. This year, as in many other years, the UAE is coming top.
In fact, that's one question that we started asking in 2012. And what is surprising is that for the 10th consecutive year, the UAE came on top in terms of the country that most young Arabs want to live in, and that's nearly 47%. And in fact, what is also surprising is we give them a sample of about 30 plus countries, most of them developed countries, some in the region as well. And when you compare UAE to all of these countries, that came on the top. The second choice, the United States of America, is 19%, less than half. And then, of course, Canada, France, and Germany, where the other choices, where people want to live in. And of course, the country they want to emulate, UAE again on the top with 46%, followed by the US, Canada, France, and Germany.
Sunil John is the president for the MENA region of BCW and the founder of ASDA BCW, talking to us about the annual Arab Youth Survey, which has just been released, showing a surprising jump of optimism for the youth of this region.
Right, we are.